Hi everyone, it's Joe here from Christian Businesses in Kent. Thank you for joining us. This was planned to be a live stream, but through some teething issues, we're going to record it instead and come to you not live. So there you go. In case you don't know, CBiK is a free monthly online meeting. It's for Christians in Kent who are in business, and it's a chance to support and disciple each other whilst also making some new business connections. And that is something that you can find out more about at cbic.uk. I'll put a link up at the end. But I'm joined today by Mr. Paul Bulkeley, who I've been chatting to via email for a little while. But this week I had the privilege of being able to actually meet in person. So rather than me saying too much more about him, Paul, do you want to tell us a little bit more about yourself, what do you do, where are you based, that sort of thing?
Yeah, great. Well, it's lovely to be with you. So I'm based down in the south coast in a place called Totton. Well, my office is actually just on the edge of Southampton in a place called Totton. I'm an architect by profession, and I run a firm of architects called Snug, which I founded in 2003. And we've grown to, well, we topped out at about 18 people just before lockdown. We're slightly under that now, but been around since 2003. And I live actually in Lymington, just on the other side of the New Forest from where the office is. And I've also founded an organization called BizMin. So I sort of have two hats on. I run a business, but I also founded this organization called BizMin, which I'm sure I'm going to tell you more about.
That's the hope. But yeah, down on the south coast, lovely part of the world. We miss not being down there ourselves anymore, but Kent's pretty nice too.
I like being on the New Forest. I sail a lot, so it suits me very
brilliant.
well.
Lovely, lovely. So it's no secret that you're a Christian, hopefully. Otherwise, I may have just let the cat out of the bag. But to give you the task of explaining something that's quite a complex thing in just a few words, what does that mean to you?
Well, yes, I am a Christian, which means I definitely believe in living my life with Jesus by my side. And so, yes, I'm a Baptist by the building in which I attend a service on a Sunday morning, but I've been part of many denominations over the years. And for me, my Christian life is very central to my life, but also something I'm passionate about living out in my day to day. And that's very much what BizMin's about.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, you mentioned the architects firm, you mentioned Snug. So then I guess to ask a loaded question, what is there a link? Is there any link between the faith that you talked about and your work? Are you an architect firm that only works with Christians, for example?
No, definitely not. And in a sense, very important that we don't, in part because, part of what being a Christian in the workplace is about is having a witness. So it's very important for me that we don't just work with Christians, both in terms of my colleagues and also in terms of the clients we have. But also we do work with Christians, and we love working with churches, and we're actually working on, well, in some ways, probably the most significant project we're working on at the moment, which is the largest Christian landmark, well, certainly new landmark in the UK, called Eternal Wall of Answer Prayer. And we won that in an international design competition a few years ago now, but I just started on site, and we're making really good progress towards the construction of that monument. So there's many things that being a Christian in business means to me, and I'm sure we'll unpack more of those. But it's something I take very seriously, and something I seek to try and think about, grapple with, and really try and work out. And over the last 20 years, spent a lot of time with my two fellow Christian directors, Ben and Mike, working that out on the ground and trying to take what we know or what we're discovering in the Bible and what we discover in our quiet times and what we discover in conversation with other Christians, and then actually applying that in our work. And I think it's a real adventure. Actually, I often say I think my testimony one's testimony should be no different in terms of its ups and downs and wonder, whether one's planting a church or building a business or running a family. I think we want to see God at work, don't we?
I mean, you mentioned that your other directors are Christians. Is that by accident? Is that coincidence?
So I founded the practice in 2003, and at the time I was building my first house, turned into my first property development because I built two, and the builder was a guy called Ben. Ben recommitted. His dad was a very committed Christian, but Ben had sort of fallen away a bit, and he really recommitted his life to the Lord during that project. We then went on to do some property development together, and then I launched Snug and Snug Homes and Snug Architects, and he was a director of well, he was a business partner in Snug Homes, and he became a director of Snug Architects, and eventually shut down his construction company and moved over to Snug full time. And in the meantime, I was running a university course at Southampton, civil engineering and architecture degree, and I met a guy called Mike, who was one of my first cohort of students, and we got along very well. He came to do a year out placement with us, and then stayed and went on and eventually qualified, and 15 years later, he's a director of Snug as well. So, but he was also Christian. So, from quite different ways, God brought two great guys into my team who were very different to me, which was very important. Different denominational backgrounds, so different to me both in their faith journey, but also different to me in terms of their professional skills. But together, iron sharpens iron, and I think we found ourselves to be a much stronger team for being different. But yeah, it's great to be aligned as well. That kind of yoking thing, I do think is important. I mean, I think it has fundamentally it has big impact if one's not. So I wouldn't go so far as to say it's everything, but I think it does make a big difference.
Yeah. So you've mentioned BizMin as a course that you run alongside the business. They sound like quite different things. So do you want to tell us a little bit more about BizMin, what it is?
Yeah, great. So BizMin is an organization. It's an organization dedicated to calling and equipping a generation of Christian entrepreneurs. So that's the tagline, if you like. BizMin started in 2017. But for me, the journey really started quite a long time before that. So in 2007, I was in India with a group of students, and on the flight home, I felt God telling me to go back to India and raise up a generation of Christian entrepreneurs. And when I got back, I got a body of teaching, which very quickly over the period of a week, I just sort of wrote down and turned into a kind of conference material. And then I had the opportunity over the 10 years after that to go back to India most years and work with about 2,500 pastors across the whole of South India, predominantly Tamil Nadu. And but it was becoming quite apparent that although that message was bearing fruit, it was bearing fruit in my own life, and it was bearing fruit in the lives of the people I was presenting it to. I was kind of the blocker in a sense. This message could only go as far as I could presence myself and communicate it. So I felt God challenging me to launch this organization called BizMin as a way of, I guess, putting my head above the parapet and working out a context in which that message could be more widely disseminated. And we launched on the 500th anniversary of the Reformation, which was great, which was the 31st of October 2017. And then really BizMin's core resource is what's called the BizMin Course, which is it isn't all of the teaching that I was delivering in India, but it's a sort of condensed version of some of the core issues around this idea of business as ministry. And that's really the heart of what BizMin's about. It's about business as ministry. And the course unpacks what that looks like and how that might come about in our lives.
And on a really practical level, what does the course look like?
So it's a 10-part course, normally meeting once a week for 2 hours. It's a facilitated course, and there's a course handbook, which one can either download. At the moment, it's downloadable for free from our website, but you can buy a hard copy from us as well. But basically, it's a bit like an alpha course for business people, I guess. But it's really about the journey of systematically trying to understand how is business. Why is this important? Why is God even wanting business people to be in business? Is that the calling on my life? How does that relate to his purposes? And then the rest of the course is really about systematically moving through what does it actually look like to do business as ministry, and what might be the kind of key ingredients and hallmarks of that. And then there's a series of sessions that go through that, looking at the creation mandate, looking at the Great Commandment, looking at the Great Commission, and then looking at two fundamental areas, really, the core issue of how we manage money, and particularly the thorny subject of profit. And we talk about profiting through purpose. And then finally, we talk about making a fruitful impact, basically, and making sure that we're bearing spiritual fruit. And I think a lot of this stuff was stuff that I I didn't take for granted, but in the sense because I'd kind of discovered this and this is how I'd thought. And if I'm honest, I was really not connected into these things in any way at all. I'm not one of these people who sort of done the rounds of lots of things and then tried to condense it into something. In some ways, to my shame, I guess, I hadn't ever been a part of any Christian business group or any any contact with anything that's going on until actually very recently. Partly how we met, Joe. But I think in some ways that did mean that I just came at it from first principles and just came at it from my own, sort of sense of fresh perspective on it. And I think now I'm realizing there are some subtleties and some USPs in what BizMin's about. And, it wasn't unintentional that we called it BizMin rather than BAM. So it's not business as mission, it's business as ministry. It's a subtle difference, but there are some things in that which are quite important to me. And obviously mission's a really key fundamental part of it, but I think it can often easily become for us this idea of missionary work, and that's a very loaded term and tends to imply doing it somewhere else further away from home. Whereas the idea of every member ministry and all Christians,
it's your everyday.
It's your everyday, yeah, and it's more. I'd like to think it's more comprehensive. It's not a missionary who does business so that they can be a missionary. It's a businessman who does business God's way, and that is missional. That is fundamentally going to have an impact for the kingdom of God.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the website there with some resources, so I put that up on screen there. It's bizmin.org. I happen to know that there is a course starting very soon because I'm going to be attending that. So that starts next week. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah, Tuesday. So Tuesday the 13th of September. It's a log on at 10 to 6 for a 6 o'clock start. Try and start promptly, and they're 2-hour sessions, so finishes at 8 o'clock UK time. British Standard Time, because people do attend the course from all over the world, and then halfway through this course, no doubt the clocks will change and it causes chaos.
and if people are wanting to find out more or get involved or enroll for this upcoming course, is the website the best place to go?
Yeah, I mean, the fastest way to go is just to email connect@bizmin.org. That will get an email to me, and just express an interest. I'll send you an application form, and then you'll be there. I mean, it's probably worth me saying that the course has a small cost. There's £150 cost for the course over the 10 weeks, so that's spread over the whole 10 weeks. And the aim behind the course is we're looking to effectively play it forward. So the course is basically an encouragement to Christian entrepreneurs and business leaders and owners and those with responsibility in a business who want to look at how their Christian faith applies. But our vision as an organization is also that people who are in roles in life where they've reached a place where they have some maturity in business and some maturity in faith would like to give something back and become a facilitator. And so we're also in the business of equipping facilitators who then use the material to deliver courses in their community, within their network. And for some people, actually, in terms of being part of a bigger movement, it's a real privilege to deliver these courses, and I have people attending them from all over the world. And it's an amazing thing to go on a 10-week adventure with Christian entrepreneurs from places as far away as Singapore and Hong Kong, Nigeria, Kenya, North America, and you're all in the mix together, and because of Zoom, and you realize how much you have in common, but you also sharpen each other. So I basically do that 3 times a year, and we're looking to find people who might volunteer to do 1 or 2 courses a year as well, so that dissemination can grow. It's that whole idea I was saying at the beginning, that I don't want to be the bottleneck. So although I do still run courses, and I'm very passionate about it, we have people running courses all over the world now, which is great, and it's starting to gain momentum. Early days, but it's definitely gaining momentum now.
Yeah, great. So bizmin.org to find out more. If you want to enroll for next week's course, connect@bizmin.org. Thank you, Paul, for joining me today.
Real pleasure.
And as a reminder for everyone else, you can find out more at CBiK.uk about our Christian businesses in Kent. We're just about to restart again after the summer. So on the same day as the next BizMin course starts, we'll meet at 11 next Tuesday. We'd love to have you there. Tickets are free and you can get them via the website. So yeah, thanks again, Paul. And I will talk to everyone again soon.
Cheers.